Hello, everyone. Today is October 7th, and we have a new community chat about nutrition. Today, we're going to be talking about all these sugar drinks. We keep hearing they are not good for you, but we might not know why they're not good for you or why they are so bad for you. Is it just publicity, or is there some science behind that statement? So today we have with us Sariel Grullon, who's a registered dietitian. She's also part of Montefiore in the Bronx. And with us today, Taylor Garlow, and she is a dietetic intern that actually is working with Sariel right now. So thank you so much for being here, girls. Definitely we need to hear this information. It's a lot out there. And unfortunately, every time that it comes to nutrition, some of the information can be confusing. Like some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, and a lot of people just don't know what to believe. So I'm happy to have you here with us today because hopefully, we're going to answer a lot of our questions. And now that I say questions, I'm just going to invite our attendees to please ask your questions. Use the chat box, the Q&A box. I'm sure that if you're joining us today, it's because you are interested in the topic and you would like to ask some questions on your own. So while you start asking questions, let me just ask Sariel to introduce yourself. First, tell us a little bit about you and what you do and how you got to this field of nutrition.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Like Sandra said, my name is Sariel. I am a registered dietitian at the Montefiore Clinic on Prospect, the Bronx Health Collective. I got into nutrition through farming. So I used to farm in Jersey, and then that introduced me to nutrition education, where I ended up completing my internship and my bachelor's at Montclair and my internship at CUNY School of Public Health here in the city. And then I interned at Montefiore Bronx Health Collective back when it was South Bronx Health Center for 6 months under Sandra's supervision. And then after passing my exam, I came back and now I'm a dietitian, one of 3 on the team at South Bronx Health Center, now known as Bronx Health Collective.
Thank you, Sariel. And Taylor, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into this field of nutrition?
Yes, thank you so much for having me and letting me join. Again, I'm Taylor. I'm one of the dietetic interns at the Bronx Health Collective offices, and I am currently in my dietetic internship program through Teachers College, which is part of Columbia University. I did my undergrad in nutrition at Syracuse University, but I really got in nutrition because of the 2-week nutrition unit we did in my 10th grade health class. Which is a very weird place to find my career inspiration, I feel like. But I really was just so amazed at the things I was learning in that class, and I started kind of applying them to my own life and could see how food and properly nourishing myself really made me feel a lot better. And I really just felt inspired to want to continue educating those about how food can really help do wonderful and amazing things for us. So that's really kind of where I got started. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Oh, well, thank you, Taylor, for being with us. So let's get into the topic. A lot has been said about, all those sugared beverages. And I think that it can get confusing sometimes with the ingredients. Is it really sugar in the drinks or is it something else? Sometimes, we see a lot of names, maltitol, sorbitol, high fructose, things like that. So what would be the difference between sugar and all these other names?
So when we're looking at the food label, the nutrition facts label, it's important to check the back to see the ingredients, right? So the difference between all these different names for sugar is basically their names and different chemical structures and ingredients that are used to make the beverages sweetened, specifically starting with something like high fructose corn syrup. That is something that's made out of corn to make drinks sweeter. And then when we're thinking of words like mannitol, sorbitol, those are different sugar alcohols. So basically different ways that sugar or sweetened chemicals can be use to make your beverages taste a little sweeter. And then when we're thinking of non-nutritive sweeteners, so like things like sweet and low and stuff, those sweeteners aren't necessarily made from sugar. They're made from a thing that tastes like sugar. And the idea behind those is that you can use a lot less and have a very, very sweet drink. But they're very much sweeter than a regular sugary, like if you're just taking a teaspoon of sugar.
Yeah, there are some people that actually say, you know, oh, when I switch to one of the sweeteners instead of sugar, then I taste, you know, the taste is sweeter. So is that why? And then how do we need to use it? Does the taste also have anything to do with the effect that the sugar or sweetener is going to have in our health?
So the taste specifically, it's done like that on purpose in a way so that you're using less. Folks that are going to be using less sugar in their beverages are folks with diabetes or other conditions that they want to manage their sugar intake. So when we're thinking of taste, the goal is to use less sugar when we're cooking with those sweeteners or sweetening our beverages like tea or coffee. So the taste will be much sweeter, but you're gonna be able to use less of the sweetener as opposed to if you were using sugar. Could you remind me your second question, please?
No, I think that was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, here is the thing. Then talking about these sweeteners as well, right? There are a lot of people that say that it causes cancer and many even other diseases and things like that. So what's true about that, or what's not true about that?
Yeah, that's a very popular like research that goes around. Unfortunately, that research was only done once and has never been replicated. So when we are using research to support evidence, when we're talking to our patients, to our family and friends, we want to use research that's replicatable. So the study that they did where they found some cancer growth in the mice, one, the amount of sugar the amount of sweetener that was given to the mouse is something that would never be eaten by a human. And two, no studies have been able to reproduce that. So we tend to not use research that supports that and then give the reassurance to the community, to our family, patients, and friends that that is not true. Instead, we want to focus on how we can build healthy plates, balanced plates, switching up our beverages intake so we're not consuming too much of everything. Instead, we're having balance.
And let's talk a little bit about the different drinks. So we have soda, diet soda, zero drinks, and then fizzy drinks, you know, things like that. So it's hard to say or to ask, I know, which one is best, but how do we compare the different drinks?
Yeah, the first thing I would say if a patient came to me asking this question is first understand how often they're drinking these beverages, right? Get an understanding. Are you drinking 3 juices a day and sodas a day? Finding out the frequency is really important because then we can talk about balancing and adding some of the beverages that don't have sugar or different ways to increase water intake through that. After we do that, then we would look through the food labels and see what exactly you're consuming. For diet soda, again, it's going to have that sweeter taste. So the diet soda is going to be sweeter than a regular soda, with the idea that you will be drinking less because it's not as sweet. And also with other like diet juices, they're always going to be a little bit more sweeter than your regular juice. So for folks that are having juice in those ways or sodas, sometimes we talk about diluting the beverage so it's not as sweet. We also talk about incorporating some fruits with the water so that they can still get the flavor of sweetness, but not necessarily just sugar from the juice. Because there's not too much nutritional benefit in juice. And if we're having a fruit juice, we kind of want to also have the fruit so that we can have the fiber and all the other nutrients that are inside the fruit.
So even if it says 100% juice, it is not recommended.
We want to limit our intake of it. So if we're having a juice every once in a while, that's okay. But if we're having 3 juices a day, that's an opportunity to check in and see, like, why are we drinking the juice? Are we actually thirsty? Because sometimes sugary beverages don't quench our thirst, right? They make us feel like we're quenching our thirst, but they're actually making us thirstier. So having a conversation about adding some more water to your juice intake is really important when we're talking about sugary beverages.
And how do you do that? Like, is there a formula? Like, do we know how much water to add or just whatever amount of water?
I think it's a little bit different for every person. I like to start some folks with half juice, half water, but that is very shocking to some people because they're so used to the sugar of the juice. So then we start smaller, like a 1/4 cup of water and then the rest of the juice. And we build our tolerance to not having as sweet drinks.
Now, what about for those people that don't like to drink water? I mean,
those are my favorite patients. I like to think, like, really get creative, especially we just finished the summer, so we had a lot of fruits and herbs going around. So we get creative in that sense of adding flavor to the water. Fruit waters, infused waters is an easy term to search on YouTube to find a different lot of recipes. But then we also have a conversation about having fruits and vegetables that are also hydrating. So making sure that we're having like watery fruits, including those in our days, and even making like smoothies with them. So like blending them with water so that it's helping you increase your water intake, but it doesn't taste just like water.
So do you recommend any particular fruits or vegetables to make a good infused water? Because honestly, you know, for example, you know, at some hotels, they have those beautiful carafes of water with like lemons and all of that. I go home, I try to do the same, it never works. My water just doesn't taste like that. So how do you really make a good infused water?
My favorite one to start folks off on is any kind of berry. So blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, because one, it's sweeter and it changes the color of the water when you let it sit for longer. So that also helps like tricking your mind in a way. And then adding some kind of acidity. So like lemon, lime, those are really good to counter the sweetness and like heighten all the other flavors so that it's not just like blueberry water that you're drinking.
So you gotta mix like the berries and the lemons or
Yes.
limes or whatever.
It's best to like sit it overnight so that in the morning the color is able to come out into the water and then you're able to drink fake juice.
So maybe that might be the key, that you have to let it sit overnight, because I just put the things there and I drink it and it tastes like nothing. It just tastes like dirty water to me. And good. What about herbs? Are there any herbs? I've seen some infused water with herbs. I don't really know what they are.
Yeah, some herbs that would be great, and Taylor, feel free to chime in if you have any, are like your mint and your rosemary. Some people like cilantro, but that can be a little bit off-putting for folks. But mint is a good one to start with because everyone kind of likes mint in their drinks if we're going out. So that same kind of thing. And it's important when we are using these herbs to like smack them a little bit to wake up the herb and let the flavors come into the container or the beverage that you're using.
And do you do that in the water or do you do that before you put them in the water?
Before.
Oh, really?
So that you can release all of the good stuff into the water. Because if you put it inside the water, it's not really going to do anything. There's nothing to agitate the cell walls in a way. So we need to release that stuff.
Okay. Sport drinks. Talk to us about sports drinks because we have a lot now. Kids like to drink them. And again, are they better than soda or juice? The same? What's going on there?
So when we're thinking of sports drink, it's kind of like juice, we can think of it, because they have things like sugar and added sugar in them, but they have other things like electrolytes. So when we're using sports drinks to rehydrate ourselves after a very competitive day, we have to think also that water can be hydrating as well. So I often talk to folks that have children or are very athletic themselves, then yeah, Gatorade after a practice is okay, but water is okay too. Now, if you're just using Gatorade to drink juice, I would then go back to all the things that we talked about before. How often are you drinking the Gatorade? Are you drinking water? Are you drinking, also eating fruits and veggies to help balance all of that out as well? Because there is sugar in those drinks. And then something else that's important is for folks that are sick or dehydrated, have diarrhea, flu season is hopefully not coming, but coming, all those things where our body can be depleted of electrolytes, having some Gatorade is also helpful to help replenish that in your body.
Now, because of the electrolytes that are in the sports drinks, you know, you just said something that stuck to me, like after sports, after being active, you know, but what about, you know, especially kids, if they're just sitting at home drinking sports drinks with electrolytes, is that a problem?
Not that it's a problem, but you want to question, like, what are you thirsty? Are you bored? Do you want some, like, what is going on that you're gravitating towards that? Because it's kind of like juice. It's just a sugary drink with electrolytes. But if they're not really doing anything, especially taking into context like the year that we had where we're all home, we don't necessarily need all these extra things when we're not really moving as much.
Okay. And then there are, talking about kids, right? There are other types of sugar drinks, like chocolate milk, for example. And, you know, things that look a little bit more nutritious, but are they really?
Chocolate milk's a good one. I don't see too many patients drinking chocolate milk anymore.
Or the strawberry milk?
Yeah, those ones. I actually had one recently and I was like, oh, this is very sweet. So I would think if I were to see a patient that was having chocolate milk every day, or the schools that are having giving students chocolate milk, really being mindful of how often they're drinking that chocolate milk, and if they're finishing the whole container, and how we can again add some more balance to their meals, because it's very, for someone that doesn't really have sweet in beverages, it's very sweet. So I can't even imagine what it feels like for a little kid to have all that sugar right away in the morning. So again, I would just see how often I'm drinking it. Maybe we can switch it out with some regular milk to lighten the load, so to speak, of how much chocolate milk we're having, and check the frequency of how often they're having these flavored milks.
Okay, so I think I'm getting common concept here is diluting. So if we're drinking juice, we're diluting with water. If we're drinking like strawberry milk or chocolate milk, we can dilute with milk, correct?
Yeah, and also just not necessarily diluting, but also like how often, if it's the frequency of
so it should be diluting and kind of spacing how much we're drinking. Okay, now we are starting to get some questions. So very good one here from Craig. It says, why don't manufacturers offer reduced sugar fruit juices similar to reduced sodium items like canned soups and vegetables?
So similar to what we had, what I kind of alluded to earlier, sometimes we have conditions where we have to monitor our intake of sugar and sodium. And with those conditions, the manufacturers want to offer alternatives to folks that still want to enjoy their products, but also want to be mindful. But the question is, why don't they do? They do have reduced sugar fruit juices. Sorry, I misread it. They do have some reduced. I know like Snapple has Diet Snapple, which has less or no sugar. And the Tropicanas also have
Well, they have the 50s.
Yeah.
You know, like drop 50, that's like 50% sugar.
So some juices have their reduced sugar, and even like those smoothie juices. Taylor, can you think of any that are also?
Other than they definitely do have like reduced sugar, like just standard fruit juices. I don't really look for them, to be quite honest. I don't drink a lot of juices, so I can't think of other ones other than definitely the 50 Tropicana as well. I've seen and like diet cranberry juices, yeah, things like that.
I was just gonna say about the cranberry because I'm a cranberry juice lover. So, but they do have the light version. And I'm starting to see a little bit more of those light versions. The only thing that I've seen is that, you know, definitely the sugar content is like half the content, but now it's not 100% juice anymore. Now it's 50%. So I'm thinking, well, they're putting the water that I can put at home. Am I thinking correctly?
I would think so, right? They're just doing it for us, so we don't have to.
Right. So, because if I'm getting half the juice and more water, I might as well just get the 100% juice and not the water myself. That's what I think. And talking about the smoothies, are smoothies a good option for kids and adults that do not like eating healthy?
Yeah, I would say, of course, any way that we're trying to increase our intake of fruits and vegetables is the goal. When we are making smoothies, it's important to, same thing like balancing our plates, it's important to balance our smoothies. So, excuse me, I know folks tend to gravitate to like strawberry banana and stuff. So yes, we want to have fruit in our smoothies, but we also want to add other things like vegetables, grains like oatmeal. Some folks even like protein powder or like peanut butter, nut butters to help balance it out. So when we are having our smoothies to help introduce it to adults, fruits and vegetables to adults or kids, we also want to think like, okay, how can I balance this out? How can I add a little bit more than just the 2 fruits and my dairy? Can I add some protein? Can I add some carbs? And this will also help to make you feel a little bit fuller from the smoothie because there's a lot of other nutrients in there for your body to digest.
Now, here is a question. You know, there are people who also like to juice at home. And they use the juicer, right? And I love like a good carrot and orange juice, to be honest with you, is one of my favorites. But then at the same time, is that healthy if you're doing that, if you're using juicers?
I first want to say that my favorite juice is beets, orange, and carrots.
Oh,
that's the only way I like beets. I don't like beets. But yes, a juice every once in a while is fine, right? A juice. The things that I would like to know when I'm speaking to patients that are juicing is how often they're doing that, but then also pointing out that when we are juicing, we're losing some nutrients in the fruits and vegetables that we're juicing, specifically fiber. And fiber is really important because it helps to keep you full, helps you regular going to the bathroom. So when we are juicing, we're removing those fibers from the juice itself. So for some folks, I suggest like reusing the pulp in other things, maybe putting it in a smoothie later on, baking it into goods, sprinkling on salads, depending on whatever the juice was, and being mindful that it's like a very concentrated form of juice. So you're getting all of the sweetness from the fruits or vegetables right away into your body. And so we want to make sure that we're pairing that with some kind of snack or something so that we are not raising our glucose so quickly.
Because, you know, there are people who actually can use or like to use smoothies for weight loss. And, you know, they are like, oh, yeah, I do a green smoothie in the morning. You know, but sometimes it's like apples and grapes, like a green apple and green grapes and things like that. So is that good for you? Does it really help you lose weight?
When we're using smoothies in that capacity, we're using it as a meal replacement. And yeah, we can use it to lose weight because we're decreasing our intake of calories. when we are building smoothies like that, it's important to, again, focus on building balance so that we're staying full, but also being mindful of like rapid weight loss and how it can impact our health long term, and being mindful that rapid weight loss can lead to weight gain later on. So when we are using these tools to help us lose weight, it's important to also concentrate on getting balanced meals throughout the day and focusing on things like movement, stress management, and sleep to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well.
Are all juices and smoothies healthy?
I would say that everything is healthy when we're thinking about it. And it's important to see how frequently we're having everything and all of the other things and habits that we're building every day to make ourselves be healthy. So a juice every once in a while, fine. A smoothie every once in a while, fine. But as long as we're honoring, you know, what our body is asking for, and making sure that we're eating when we're hungry, stopping when we're full, all these other important concepts that help build a healthy person. If we're doing all that, then yeah, everything is good. But when we are having these tendencies or habits where we're over consuming, and over consuming could look like not balanced meals, not enough water, all these things. When we're doing those things, then we have to see where we can add some balance so that we can be healthy for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. What about people with diabetes? Can smoothies be an option for people who have high blood sugars?
Mm-hmm. And that is why it's even more important to make sure that they're balanced. So adding things like oatmeal to slow down how much glucose is coming into your cells at that time. And we also want to be mindful of how much fruit that we're eating. So instead of having like a serving of fruit in the smoothie, I would do, if you want to do 2 fruits in your smoothie, do half of a serving of each so that you can manage how much carbs you're in eating or drinking from the smoothie. And it would be very important also to add other things in your smoothie like nuts or seeds and stuff to help regulate how quickly the body will be digesting the glucose from the foods that you're having.
Mm-hmm. Now, here is one thing. People sometimes are scared of mixing fruits and vegetables in a smoothie. Are there any rules around that?
Rules? I don't necessarily find any rules, but I would like to know when people are building smoothies to see how much they are. So typically a serving of fruit and a serving of vegetable, I would say half of that to see how you feel. And then build off of that, making sure to include other things like your protein, whether it be from yogurt or protein powder or nut butter.
Right? I've heard people putting peanut butter, almond milk, soy milk, just regular milk.
Mm-hmm. All those things really help balance out the smoothie. What was the last one?
Tofu. I've seen people put tofu in.
Oh yeah, silken tofu. Really, and it's really smooth, so it's able to make it a nice smooth smoothie.
Yeah. Okay, so my conclusion on smoothies is you gotta make sure that it's a good mix between fruits, vegetables, and mainly protein in order to make a healthy smoothie, right? If I'm drinking a strawberry banana smoothie every day, all day long, even though I make it at home, is that healthy?
It is a lot, right? We want to limit how much we are having and balancing it.
Okay. Same if I'm doing, let's say, something green, like a spinach and apples. If I'm drinking too much of that, it stops being healthy at some point.
It stops being balanced, and we want to have some balance. My favorite.
Yeah. So what about those drinks? I'm not gonna name any brands here, but I'm trying to answer this question. So there are some drinks that are vegetable based, commercial drinks that they claim to be based on vegetables. I've seen, some of the labels for those drinks and all of that. What do you have to say about those? Is that something that we can stock up and drink every day because they taste so good?
Yeah, those are very sweet. So I would again look at the label, and this is Taylor will be doing a sugar demo shortly and talking to you about how to read the labels. But I would look at the label to see how much grams of sugar are in there, and then make an educated decision. So we don't want so much sugar. And those beverages, they are so delicious, but when you look at the label, you're like, oh my goodness, if I made this at home, I'd have a little bit more control of the sweetness and how much is going in there. So for folks that do have those smoothies, I often say like, oh, we can try the baby ones. Those are smaller and less of a load of sugar that you're intaking. And then again, going back to the stuff that we talked about in the beginning, how often you're drinking them, how can we also add some water to your day, because they do contain a lot of sugar.
Yeah, but they're also creamy, kind of, right? So
Mhm.
if you add water, I guess you're gonna ruin the texture.
Oh no, not water to the smoothie, water to your day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can. Those.
Now, if I make a smoothie with peanut butter, banana, protein, I guess will be something like whey protein, and almond milk, is that good balanced?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would challenge you to add some veggies if you feel comfortable. Spinach is pretty good. Doesn't really take on any flavor, but that's a pretty balanced one because it's having a fruit, a protein, and then some kind of dairy. Well, a plant-based dairy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So some people here are doing well.
That's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
I see. That's great. Okay, let's talk about carbonated drinks or sparkling water.
Like seltzers.
Yes.
Seltzers are really helpful for folks that don't like water. That question that you had asked earlier. They don't have any sugars. Normally, they don't have any sugar, and they can help folks transition either from soda to drinking more water more frequently, or juice to drinking water. And they're pretty good. They're very nice also to include into juices. I know for some folks, I often recommend that, like make a sparkling cranberry juice so that it's not cutting. Some people really don't like when you dilute the juice with water. So diluting it with seltzer sometimes can be helpful and kind of makes the drink a little fancy. So that is a nice tool. And overall, the only thing with seltzer I would be mindful of with some folks is how often they're drinking them, and then if they're noticing any discomfort like gas, urinary stuff. Sometimes that causes people to use the bathroom a little bit more frequently. So being mindful of those, the way that it's feeling in your body.
Mm-hmm. Now, especially for people with diabetes, how do they get affected by drinking sugar beverages?
So same thing, we want to, what can happen when we have sugary beverages and we are a person with diabetes is that we can see that our glucose can come up, which could be a good thing if your glucose is really low. Like if you're having a hypoglycemic episode and you need to find something to raise your glucose really quickly, a cup of juice can really help you. But that being said, if you're just having a regular cup of juice and then not necessarily adding anything to that meal or that time that you're having the juice, it can cause your sugar levels to go up. So for folks that are having juice regularly, making sure that they're having a balanced meal with the juice, again, going back to the diluting, can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And what would be, how can we read the labels? Like what would be the correct way of reading labels? I think that, we have information out there to be able to make our choices, but a lot of us, even though we know how to read, we don't quite understand the information in the facts label. Many people sit down in the morning with the box of cereal in front of you and you see all the vitamins listed, but what does that really mean? How do you use the nutrition facts label?
Taylor, do you want to do this? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I'm happy to jump in. So in terms of the label, it can be very confusing, but it is nice that the more recent nutrition label was updated. So it was a little bit more reader friendly in some ways, some bigger texts, also making things just a serving. So as to not confuse you with the big container, having multiple servings in it. So they have made some nice adjustments for that. But in terms of sugar, there's usually a total sugar little section as well as an added sugar section if there is added sugar into the beverage. And it's always a go-to spot when you're looking at something like a juice or a soda or a sports beverage, and really taking a look at what that number, and it's usually labeled in quantity of grams, and just seeing how much sugar is added in there as opposed to the total sugar. You really want to look in your fruit juices for something that has little to no added sugar. So you're ensuring that you're getting the natural sugars from the fruit or vegetable or whatever was made for that juice. I also like to encourage people to take a look at the ingredients list as well, because they list out the ingredients of everything that's in the food or beverage product. And if it's like a laundry list of ingredients and you can't understand or read a lot of them, it's probably not going to be a great option. Food shouldn't be that complicated, and you should really know more of what you're putting in your body. So taking a look at the ingredients list as well is going to be a helpful indicator of what you're looking at for that beverage.
Mm-hmm. And how do you compare the different drinks?
I always look at definitely the added sugars. That's probably my go-to in terms of sugary beverages. And if you had the option of one soda to the next, I guess if you want to just give a plain example, and if one has 54 grams of added sugar as opposed to 24, that my go-to would be to choose one that has less added sugar. But the truth of the matter is they all have heaps of added sugar in them, unfortunately. But as Ariel mentioned, always finding balance. There's no bad foods per se, and that's where we encourage you to look at how much you're drinking. Having juice once in a while is okay, but bringing balance to your intake and including your beverage intake as well.
That's the, Sariel, prior, you were describing the size of the bottles as well. For example, you have the juice boxes that are like the kids boxes that are like this small, but then you have like huge bottles. And they might say something like 80 calories, and then you look at the large bottle and it says 100 calories. And I wonder like, oh, okay, so is there more sugar in the little box than in the big box? Or like, what's the difference?
The difference is, first I would look at the nutrition facts label and then check the serving size, right? Because for some products, it's the same product, but the serving size is bigger in the bigger bottles. Taylor, do you have any food labels to show really quickly?
I do have one here. You can see.
A little bit down. There you go. Okay, so how it says serving size, and then for that bottle, I would assume it's one because it's kind of small.
Yes.
One.
Yeah, one can.
So if we're looking at something that maybe would be 2 times that size, then you would see that it would say 2 servings, and then the information on the label is actually for 1 serving. So that's why it can get a little tricky sometimes, but I think the new label has changed it so now that it's all there. But prior to that, it would get a little tricky because then you'd have to do the math. So if you would see something that would say added sugar, you'd have to multiply by whatever the serving size actually was in that container.
Taylor, it looks like you have my favorite juice there.
I do. I was going to say this is a good example of a container that would have, there you are, multiple servings of in the entire bottle. And the old labels would say, 1 serving equals 1 cup, and the nutrition facts would reflect what's in that per cup. But the more updated labels tell you what it is for the entire container usually. So it's just good to be, aware when you're looking and making sure you're getting the right facts for the amount that you're looking to consume.
So we always need to look at the per serving, looks like to me, right? And then I guess by the time that I'm done with the whole bottle, then I will be having all these calories that says they are stored of calories. Oh gosh, okay, that's a problem. Okay, let's get into the not so nice side of things. Health effects. If I'm drinking too many sugar, what can I expect to happen in my body?
So that's a great question. I hear that often a lot, especially for folks that are in the pre-diabetic range. So when we are thinking of foods that have glucose is really what they want to ask, but it's communicated in the way of sugar, is that when we are having this excess of sugary beverages in hand with excess of foods that are rich in refined carbohydrates, coupled with inadequate movement, so we're not moving around, we're not really using the energy, but we're eating a lot of the energy or drinking a lot of the energy, what can happen is for some folks, we can accumulate glucose in the cells in a way. So it's harder for our body to digest the glucose. It's harder for the body to use the energy, and it starts to store it. And then it can, for some folks, lead to type 2 diabetes, which is where the body's not really being able to process everything. So for those folks, it's really important to have conversations about their intake, going back to all the things that we talked about, making sure we're having some balance, how often we're drinking juices and stuff. So the effects of drinking a sugary beverage or any sugary drink is not like immediate, like I'm going to have this juice and then something's going to happen. It's going to take time, right? It's going to take a while for all those things to happen. Again, coupled with the other unhealthy habits of not moving, not getting adequate sleep. Stress plays a huge role in the way that our body utilizes energy. So all of those things can really have a domino effect, but it's a very slow build.
Are the effects of juice the same for children and adults, or is it different?
That's a good question. For kids, not necessarily, because kids are running around more often. Again, if you have a child that is a little bit more sedentary, especially taking into consideration the way that we're living now with the pandemic, if we are not as active or using that much energy, then we want to be mindful of how often we're consuming these things, and also including our balanced meals and our water. But it can accumulate. That slow build can happen with youth. But youth that are more active, it's not as slow of a build. It's a little even slower.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are a lot of people, especially people with diabetes, that are concerned about the sugar intake from fruit. So what's the difference between the fruit and the juice?
I love
sugar in the fruit and the juice.
When patients tell me that, because our society has kind of like made us afraid from eating fruits, and it's so sad because fruits are really beneficial. So when we are having, when those questions do come up, I make sure to discuss that juice is a little bit different than fruit. Juice doesn't really have as many nutrients, and fruit has a lot of the nutrients, and it has fiber and all the other parts, and it's also something that we're chewing. So our body, excuse my dog, so our body is able to, get the energy from there, but it's slower to get the energy because of the fiber, different kinds of energy, and you're eating, right? We're eating it instead of drinking. So I often tell my patients not to be afraid of fruit. I ask how much fruit that they're eating, making sure that they're having 1 serving of fruit as opposed to 2 or more, just so that we're managing how quickly the glucose is being entered into the body. But yes, eat your fruit, and it'll help, especially if you have, if you're dehydrated, but also if you suffer from constipation. In adding some fiber from fruits and veggies, water, movement is helpful, but don't be afraid of fruit, please.
Okay, now I hear there are different types of sugar. So the sugar in the drinks is different than the sugar in the fruit. And then I hear that also milk can have some sugar.
Yeah, all these things. And so the reason that they're different is just their chemical structure. So that the way that they when we look at them in science, they just look a little bit different, but they all have a similar structure and they get broken down in the body in similar ways. Different things are needed to help break it down in the body. And these are like our naturally occurring sugars. Our sugar alcohols are a little bit different, chemically, structurally speaking. And again, talking about all the way in the beginning, they taste a little bit different, but there's different sugars and our body knows how to break them down. And it's important to get a mix of all of the sugars from all of our foods that we're eating.
And here is another question. Can we add apple or pear sauce in smoothies?
I would say yes. What do you think I would say? I would say let's have some balance in there too, right? So if we're having an apple, I'm thinking like an applesauce is what they're asking.
Yeah, applesauce or pear sauce.
Yeah, I would, again, I'm picturing like a nice fall smoothie in my head when you say that. So like apple, cinnamon, some kind of yogurt, spinach just for healthy measure, and some cinnamon sprinkled on top. That would be a nice, really fall smoothie.
So not necessarily we have to be blending the fruit all the time. Can we also blend, I always think of baby food for a reason, it's kind of blended and I feel like it's so bland. At the same time, it's like it doesn't have a lot of sugar or anything like that. So can we use baby food also instead of fruits? Because sometimes fruits can be expensive or out of season or something, but the baby foods usually, non-perishable and easy to access.
Definitely, you can use any kind of fruit. Baby food is also helpful to introduce younger kids into having smoothies. So if they're already comfortable with the flavor of a baby food, you can use that to build a smoothie. Especially to your point of financial constraints or anything, we can also have frozen fruit. The fruits and veggies never have to be fresh, right? Whatever is convenient and accessible to you is more important, because the most important thing is that you're getting the food, that you're eating them, right? So any way that you can eat them and then focusing on balance is very important. So frozen, canned, cupped, sauced, whichever way you can get it in there, just make sure that we're getting it in.
Perfect. Taylor, did you have anything else to show us?
Oh, I have lots of things. Would you like me to get into the demonstration part?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Okay. So I have about 5 different popular, sugary beverages to kind of show everyone and have portioned out just exactly how much sugar is in these beverages, so you can get a little bit more of a tangible idea of just how much, because it's easy to not think about it when it's diluted in a liquid and just to read the label and be like, it's probably not that much. But to really see it, I think is really kind of shocking for a lot of people. On food labels, as I mentioned, they do usually talk about sugar in terms of grams, and I'm going to talk about them in grams and then convert it to teaspoons. So it's a little bit more relatable in that sense as well. So an easy thing you can do in the store when you're looking at a food label is see how many grams it is and divide it by 4, and that is the teaspoon amount. So if it's easier for you to quantify it in that amount, that's a quick little math trick. I'm not a big fan of math, but that is one I can usually get done in the store. So just some food for thought, if you will. Okay, so I have a little fun fact in that a 20-ounce bottle of soda actually takes an adult about 46 minutes at a brisk walking pace to burn off the calories in that. So that's this serving size.
Repeat that, Taylor. 20 ounce takes
a 20-ounce bottle. Yep, this is a standard 20-ounce that you would just get in a gas station or a convenience store. And to burn off the calories, that includes the calories from all the sugar in this beverage. It would take an adult about 46 minutes at a brisk walking pace to burn all of this off. And that's because these sugary beverages tend to be higher in calories because more sugar equals more calories. So since I'm holding it in my hand, I'll talk about this one first. This is just your standard ginger flavored soda, which often has the misconception that is a little bit healthier.
But it's good for your stomach.
Right, for your stomach, but it does tend to have just as much sugar as your standard other flavored sodas as well. In fact, this has 54 grams of sugar, which comes out to be 13 teaspoons, which I wish I could show you in person because I think it's even more shocking there, but this is your standard, just like a little plastic bag, sandwich bag. So it's a little bit more shocking to see it in this amount as opposed to not getting that visual effect here. So
and you said there are 13
teaspoons. Yeah, just about 13 teaspoons. So it's a little shocking there. And I know we talked about sports beverages. Here's just your standard sports beverage that, a lot of people will use to rehydrate after their workout or a game or something for our athletes. But unfortunately, with a beverage like this comes a lot of sugar as well. This has, I believe it's 38 grams of sugar, actually no, 34, but it's about the same, which comes out to be about 8.5 teaspoons. So it's less than the soda, but still very high if you're just looking to rehydrate after an intense workout. You can obtain electrolytes naturally through things such as coconut water, fruits and vegetables, bananas, watermelon, avocado. So there's ways to rehydrate without all of that added sugar as well.
Doesn't coconut water have sugar as well?
Yes, but you could do an unsweetened coconut water. They do have those options in the store as well. And you could sweeten it with, fruits and vegetables. As we talked about infusing water, you could do the same with the coconut water as well to help if you're looking for that sweetness. What else do I have? I do have this energy drink as well. It has just about the same amount. It's 38 grams as opposed to the 34 in the energy or in the sports drink. People often grab these types of beverages for a quick burst of energy, but it does come at a price of 9 teaspoons of sugar, unfortunately. And we would encourage you to get, your energy more naturally from sugars and fruits at that rate. So we'll go to the cranberry juice, which I know is a crowd pleaser and a favorite here. But unfortunately, there's, some added sugar in this as well. There's about 5.75 teaspoons of sugar in this. I'm actually going to show you guys.
In the whole bottle?
In a serving. So this is 1 cup is a serving of this. There's I think 8 or so servings in this entire bottle. So 1 cup comes out to be about 5.75 teaspoons. So I'm just going to show you guys. I think it's easy to see it in a cup, to kind of make it a little bit more relatable as opposed to just a bag. So if you were to have a little cup, a serving size of cranberry juice, it would actually look like this in your glass. So that's about 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch of sugar in the glass of just added sugar in your cranberry juice. There are cranberry
is that sweet, apple juice tastes
right
sweeter or orange.
Yeah. It does have that little, that bitter cranberry juice that bitter taste that we know from cranberry juice. But they do load it with sugar. So with these fruit juices, that's an example of looking at the added sugar part of the food label and just making sure, you're getting low added sugar products so that you're getting more natural sugars from the actual cranberries that were used for the juice. And then I have one more. I thought it would be fun to incorporate kind of one of those pre-bottled coffee beverages that people really like to grab for convenience, of course, because there's already, the cream and the sugar in them. But unfortunately, they load these with sugar up as well. And I thought it'd be fun to put it in a mug, even though this is iced. You probably, I don't know if you put it in a mug, but to kind of show you in a mug for this bottle of coffee, it's 45 grams of added sugar, which comes out to be about 11.25 teaspoons. So in just the standard mug, that's about maybe 2 or so inches of sugar in your mug from this pre-bottled coffee. So it's really alarming, to see it actually, in a cup or in a bag. Like I said, it's really easy to be not thinking so much about what that sugar looks like in quantity when it's diluted in a liquid. And the current recommendation is that you have no more than 10% of your daily intake be from added sugars, which is about 12 teaspoons or so based on a standard 2000 calorie diet that they use for these food labels. So one of these beverage could easily meet that maximum amount and more so exceed it, unfortunately. So you really want to be mindful of having a sugar sweetened beverage and how that factors into your balanced intake of that day, which is why we are talking about possibly infusing waters and using more 100% fruit juice with less added sugar. So you're not drinking your calories and you're more eating your calories in that respect.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. Sorry if that was a lot for some of you.
No, that's actually very interesting, I think, because, you know, we don't always take time to see the reality of things, you know, and I think that you guys gave us very good tips. Okay, juice more smoothies, more water, dilute. You know, I think those are good tips for us juice drinkers. So thank you very much for joining us today. And that's it for today. It's 1 o'clock. We ran out of time as usual. So thank you so much to our attendees. I hope that you got some good tips out of this presentation like I did. And I will see you next week. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.